In Parshas Beshalach, the Torah describes the exodus of the Jews from Egypt. And along those lines, it says that Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him. For he, Yosef, had administered an oath to the children of Israel saying, God will remember you, meaning that there will come a time when God will redeem you, and you shall bring up my bones from here with you. When Yosef died, there was no way that he would have preferred to, of course, to have been buried in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, just like he buried Yaakov. But the situation was different with regard to Yosef. He was basically like the ruler of Egypt, and it would have been very, very bad had he left instructions that he wanted to be buried not in Egypt but in Israel, and the Pharaoh probably would not have given permission. So therefore what Yosef did was, he had an oath, they took an oath that they themselves could not necessarily fulfill. But that oath was passed on from generation to generation, held that oath until the time would come that the Jews would leave, and when they would leave, they would take his bones with them. The rabbis say that regarding Moshe, a wise-hearted person chooses to do a mitzvah. When everybody else was involved in getting their things, getting out of Egypt, Moshe was concerned upon performing a mitzvah. And this was a very significant mitzvah, because it's very easy to forget. People don't necessarily always have a sense of appreciation and gratitude for who was important in their lives. And sometimes a person that's not around any longer, that lived hundreds of years ago, could be extremely important, and it would be wrong to forget that person. Because Yosef was very important to the Jewish people. He was the one that was sold into slavery, and he was not crushed there. He retained his Jewishness there. And eventually, he was appointed by Pharaoh. He was able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. He was appointed by Pharaoh, and he ran things in such an intelligent, such a brilliant way that Pharaoh had nothing, and the Egyptians had nothing but great respect for him. He established the salvation point for the Jews. When there was a famine affecting the entire world, and the Jews needed a place to go, they went to Egypt. And Yosef reconciled with his brothers. He didn't retain the split in the family. His whole goal was to reconcile, because they were supposed to go on and develop. From them sprang the Jewish people. From them sprang the Jewish people, and only because of Yosef's greatness, his willingness, his ability to forgive and to forget, and to facilitate their transition to Egypt, which was the next stage in the development of the Jewish people. And Yosef knew that eventually they would be redeemed, that the entire purpose to being in Egypt was only temporary, so that the forging of the national entity of the Jewish people would take place in Egypt. Of course, it would involve a painful thing as well in terms of the slavery, but that's a necessity of the situation. Now, when the goal has been fulfilled and the redemption is taking place, so people are focused on their own things. And who is going to remember? 1 second, we can't leave yet. We have a mitzvah to perform. Well, come on, we have to go, and there's so many things we have to do. And so, no. We have a mitzvah to do. That mitzvah is to fulfill a promise, to demonstrate our hakarat hatov, our gratitude to Yosef. And the fact is, we took an oath. And he too is part of the Jews. He too is part of Eretz Yisrael. He has to come with us, and he has to be buried there, because the whole history of Yosef and his relationship to the Jewish people cannot be forgotten. And that was a great, great deed of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's an essential element of the Jewish people. We remember all of the great people of our past. We talk about Rashi, we talk about the Rambam as though they're here today. Rashi says, the Rambam says, because we are a people that comes from a glorious history of the greatest types of people. We don't appreciate that. What other nation, generation after generation after generation, produced the most outstanding minds, but it's not just intellectuals, but also righteous people that lived on the highest level of existence? Do we appreciate that? That's another reason for recognizing the supreme importance of the welfare of the Jewish people, what the Jewish people stands for, what our goals are. Our goals are to share with the world the knowledge of God, to raise everybody to a higher level. How important it is today when the world is filled with such evil and hatred and corruption, especially against the Jews. But we don't forget. We remember the great people of our past, and we're always ready to show recognition and gratitude to those who played such an important role in our lives.